Today we have a new poem called Long-Legged Fly for analysis. A long-legged fly actually is a poetic image, a metaphor or a simile for the working of human mind. The poet says, mind leads quite silent in the time of crisis. Yet believes silence is a precondition for the contemplation or musing. And mind works like long-legged fly, as the fly swims against the current of water. The mind works in the similar fashion, in solitude and silence. So we take up today the analysis of the poem called Long-Legged Fly. A short introduction is there in the beginning. The poem was written a year before his death and is remarkable for its quality of detachment and calm. Its main concern is with the place and function of artists in the civilization and society. In its controlled objectivity, the poem is autonomous and internally self-sufficient work of art. It's in the form of a collage of 3 stanzas of 8 lines each and a refrain. That's the structure of this poem. The poem exhibits a remarkable economy and precise imagery. 3 stanzas are linked by close parallel in syntax or sentence structure and theme, and by recurring refrain, which offers a unifying image for all 3 stanzas. Yeats was content to continue working flexibly within the varied form. So he is using a variety of form of rhythm, rhyme and meter. He had inherited the factors that Yeats isolates in depictions are the need for silence. Creativity needs silence. The creative mind moves in silence at crucial moment. Now, each of these 3 stanzas have 3 prominent images. One is the image of Caesar, called Alexander. The second is the image of the beautiful queen, the princess called Helen. And lastly, in the closing stanza, we have the picture of Michelangelo working in Sistine Chapel, working on the bust of Adam, the painting of Adam. So these are the opening lines: that civilization may not sink its great battle loss. The concern of Caesar is to save the civilization from barbarism. It will sink if he is distracted or disturbed at this moment. Quiet the dog, tether the pony to a distant post. The animal noises should be shut down. The animal should be kept away from the tent where he is working. Our master Caesar is in the tent and he is bending upon the map, looking at the map, planning for a war against barbaric forces. where the maps are spread. So the maps are spread before him, his eyes fix upon nothing. His eyes are vacant because he is thinking, contemplating. And a hand upon his head, some trivial detail, insignificant detail, because he is busy working on the map, planning to save the civilization. Like a long-legged fly upon the stream, his mind moves upon silence. So his mind is working, contemplating in silence over the map. Like, that's a simile, a long-legged fly working on the water. The dramatic persona in the first stanza is an officer in the Roman army. Standing near Caesar's tent, noises occur nearby, and he orders a soldier to prevent the recurrence of the noises. The Caesar is sitting over his maps, planning military operation and must not be disturbed. He is deciding whether to cross Rubicon, a river possibly. Civilization is in the form of Rome and Italian territory. These territories were in danger of being overcome. The word sing suggests the fate threatening civilization is that of a gradual and total annihilation. Its great battle is the continuous struggle of civilization, or civilization wages against barbarism and chaos. This is the stanza number 1, 8 lines and a refrain. And it has in the focus Caesar working upon the map. The second stanza now. We have now the next stanza. First of all, we have the ruler. So it's a comment upon the last scene. We have the ruler who both plans and leads in the interests of civilization. This man of action heads the poem because his persona is given in the very first stanza. The dog and pony, their animal noises are threat to his operational mind, his contemplating mind. While he is in the tent, the civilization will not sing because he is busy working to save it. The map spread before him in the tent, his hand firmly under his chin, his eyes fixed upon nothing. This last detail is echoed in the refrain. The long-legged fly holding its body above water signifies the power of the mind which enables some people to secure their world of thoughts from the intrusive and distracting flux of mundane activity. So the noises of pony and dog are the examples of mundane activity. So Caesar is wrapped up in his thought in conjunction with silence that only gifted enjoy and exploit. So Caesar was no doubt a gifted ruler who brought order in the chaotic world. The first 2 lines of each stanza go on to prescribe a condition. that must be fulfilled if something of great importance is to occur. The saving of civilization, for example, the destruction of Troy is the theme of the second or the next stanza. And the awakening of schoolgirls to sexual desire is the theme of the third stanza, the next stanza. The third line of each stanza continues with the imperative. So there are commands there. Example, quiet, move, shut. The fifth line of each stanza introduces a historical or legendary figure. At a moment of supremely significant choice, then in the seventh and eighth line, yes, underline the ordinariness of each stanza. This is the pattern of all the stanza, and this is what we call structural parallelism. So the poem is composed of structure or sentence structure which have a parallel construction, a similar construction. We are going now through the details of the second stanza, and it's here. Caesar was gazing intently. He was working quietly, silently on his map. So he gazes vacantly. Helen moves her feet in tinker shuffle in the next stanza. Artist's hand moves quietly, all in their sphere, creativity. So they are all creative mind, whether it's the mind of Caesar or the mind of Helen, the legendary queen, the beautiful queen, or Michelangelo in the third stanza, that the topless tower be burned. So this line is a reference to Faustus or Dr. Faustus by Marlowe. And it's a scene of the burning of the city called Troy. And the cause of the burning of the city of Troy was none other but Helen. She eloped with Paris, the prince of Troy, and this provoked the Greeks, and they decided to wage a war. This war was fought for a long time, and the account of war is given by Homer in Iliad and Odyssey. But we have these lines because these lines have been taken up by English playwright Marlowe in his stupendous play called Dr. Faustus. That the topless tower be burnt and men recall that face. So we are reminded of the face which was created by an artist. The charm of this face was invested by an artist. Art plays a very important role, says Yeats, in our civilization. Move must gently, if move you must in this lonely place. So she is busy thinking whether to elope or not. And it's a decisive moment for her because the fate of the city depends upon her decision. And she must think calmly. So she is busy musing. And there is a voice there, an over voice, and men recall that for move must gently, she must move quietly, so that her movements are not picked up by the society. She is not discovered by the society. She, in her thought, is ignorant of the eye of the screening eye of the society. So she is possibly being reminded here, move must gently if move you must. If you decide to elope, you should have a very quiet movement. In this lonely place, she is all alone. She thinks part woman, 3 parts a child. She is not a seductress. She is only an innocent girl. So, part woman and 3 part child. That nobody looks, and in her innocence she believes nobody is watching her and her activity. Her feet practice a tinkered shuffle. Possibly she is wearing anklets, and there is a soft sound from it picked up on the street, but this soft sound ironically was heard on the street, though it was soft. Like a long-legged fly upon the stream, the soft sound and her musings are being compared to the long-legged fly working on the water. That's the refrain. Her mind moves upon silence. So she is musing, contemplating, thinking silently before eloping with Paris, before making a decision. So in all such crucial movement, the mind works quietly, silently. This is the recurring theme in this self-contained autonomous poem. We go now to sum up the first 2 stanzas. We began with the man of action called Caesar. In the first stanza, from the man of action whose commands can decide the fate of nation, we move to Helen, a victim of circumstances, who likewise was responsible for the fate of the nation, but in a different way. She wandered away from Priam's palace, her husband, and for a moment forgot her dignity as a princess. Thinking herself unwashed, she shuffles in an uncourtly manner. Lost in her fancy, she finds herself deciding whether or not to elope. She is a girl at heart and not an adulterous woman, 3 part a child. This is the lonely place in whose silence she can achieve liberation of personality. She can find freedom to act. Upon her private musing hinges the fate of history or literature. So, when her mind is working silently, quietly, the world is watching possibly in the same manner quietly, looking for her decision. And upon her musing depend the fate of the nation and civilization and literature both. Now, we look at the circumstances of the second stanza, and this is a comment upon the second stanza. The circumstances of the second stanza are presented less explicitly. There's oblique reference to the story of Helen here. The leader of the Greek forces, Agamemnon, has just spotted Helen close by and advises his companion to be as gentle as possible. If Helen hears a sound, she is likely to discover and give alarm, and their plan will be frustrated. The opening lines combine this statement within an allusion to Faustus' address to Helen, that this was the phase that launched 1,000 ships. So this poem is full of number of literary allusion and legendary figures. These are the 8 lines of the closing stanza, that girls at puberty. So the focus here is upon Michelangelo's painting. He is busy painting Adam, and his hands are working slowly and silently. That girls at puberty may find the first Adam in their thought. The purpose of his painting is pretty sacred, to teach the girl at a very young age how to live sexual life. Shut the door of the Pope's chapel. Keep those children out. The door of the chapel is open and the noises of the children are disturbing him. And a command structure, a commanding voice is there. Close the door or shut the door and keep these children out, because children should not be given these teaching, they are too young. So there is a ring of irony there. Michelangelo, there on the scaffolding reclines Michelangelo. Michelangelo, the great poet and painter, is resting his hand upon the scaffolding, is the structure for painting. It's a stand for painting. With no more sound than the mice make, his hand moves to and fro. So his hands are working silently. While he is reclining, and he is making no noise, because he too needs silence for contemplation, for artistic creation. Thus, like a long-legged fly upon the stream, his mind moves upon silence. So he is contemplating, thinking silently. In other words, all great movement need silence, and the mind must work out these complex issues in silence. The scene in the third stanza is Sistine Chapel, I told you in the beginning, where Michelangelo is at work upon the part of his vast ceiling painting, which depicts God the Father infusing life into the body of Adam, who gazes into the eyes of the God. These are the details possibly missing from the poem. So the details have been added. There are some additional information here. The door of the chapel is open and through it can be heard the noises of the children. A Vatican officer possibly instructs the guard at the door to close the door so that the artist does not lose his inspiration, both spiritual and creative. that gives his art its power, its potency. If his work is finished, then the girls at puberty who are becoming physically aware of a man in sexual capacity will find this sacred and spiritually uplifting. The experience of watching the painting will be spiritually uplifting, inspiring image of Adam to fill their thoughts, because their mind will be filled with the sacred thoughts of Adam, then the carnal imagining of their own. Above this situational or thematic association, there is imposed a formal structure or structural pattern of verbal and descriptive details of rhythm, rhyme of length. Each of the three stanzas break down into two quatrains and a refrain. That's the structure of the poem. The summary of the structure. The first two lines state the momentous reason why silence must be preserved. Michelangelo is easy and relaxed, and he reclines and his hands move upon the painting as quietly as a mice without making a noise. So silence is a precondition, it's a state in which they exercise their qualities, whether those as childlike and innocent as Helen, or as active as Caesar, or as creative as Michelangelo. So Caesar, Helen and Michelangelo are the prominent figures in the three stanzas. And now we are going to sum up this poem, this remarkable poem in brevity, whether symbolizing order, love and art. So these three figures, Caesar stands for order, Helen for love and beauty, and Michelangelo is no doubt an artist, so he stands for art, the creative forces of the universe. These are the creative forces: order, love, beauty and art. Now we have some comments from critics. One of them is Miss Drew, Elizabeth Drew. As Miss Drew and Mr. Sweeney suggest, or simply representative of men and women performing critical work, as David Deitch is another critic, William Sherwood indicates, are depicted at important moments in trance-like contemplation of their destined work. If noises distract them, civilization will sink. Troy will stand and Helen's beauty will be completely forgotten. And Michelangelo will never complete his painting. These are the possibilities if they are distracted or disturbed. So their mind must be working like the long-legged fly. The refrain describes their meditation like a long-legged fly working against the flow of water. So long-legged fly works against the flow, the current of the water, and mind works again the momentous moment, transcendental moment, crucial moment. So Yeats links the man of action, the legendary lover Helen, and the great artist all in the moment of glory. Alike, the refrain suggests that silence and sudden movement alike distinguish the creative mind. The poem is a definition of these creative moments. So mind must be working, mind of the creative people must be working in silence. This is the substance of the poem.